Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Lily and I'm a Customer Success Manager at Microsoft Australia. I'm so excited to give you an introduction to how you can host webinars with Microsoft Teams. Now throughout this session, please feel free to ask me and my team questions in the chat window and we'll respond back to you as soon as we can. Keep in mind, we also have some time at the end of the session for Q&A as well. So what are we covering in today's session? I'm going to be providing an overview of the entire Teams webinar experience. This includes setting up the webinar, running the webinar itself, and how to access post-webinar resources. I'll be highlighting all of the new and exciting features along the way, such as custom registration forms, so get ready to learn a few new tips and tricks. Microsoft Teams webinars provides capabilities for you to schedule your webinar, register attendees, run an interactive presentation, and to analyze attendee data post-event for effective follow-up. It's ideal for structured events with interactivity that require attendee registration. These features are constantly evolving as we want to make sure that Teams can effectively cater to large-scale virtual events. Now let's take a step back for a moment. Why did we create webinar capabilities within Microsoft Teams? Well, previously we saw many of our customers manually creating forms to collect registrations, which was really time consuming, and many of us also had the need to drive more engagement with attendees. With the new webinar capabilities, we now have a more simplified way to deliver virtual events. It's a rich, interactive, and engaging experience for both presenters and attendees, combining voice, chat, video, and live reactions. Something I want to caveat is that webinars are an extension of a Teams meeting. Don't think of a webinar as something completely separate to a meeting, as both provide interactive experiences for attendees. It just takes meetings a step further by allowing the creation of custom registration forms. So all of the awesome features that I described for the webinar scenario in today's session, such as live reactions, custom layouts, and attendee reporting, are available for standard Teams meetings too. Simply think of a Teams webinar as a Teams meeting that allows you to collect registrations. So you may be wondering, Lily, how many people can I host in my meeting or webinar? Well, having an audience size of 300 people was our previous limit, but now you can scale even further. You'll be able to host up to 1,000 attendees with full interactivity, meaning they can engage in experiences such as polls, video, audio, and chat. And if your meeting exceeds 1,000 people, up to 10,000 attendees can join seamlessly using a view-only experience. And until the end of this calendar year, customers can reach up to 20,000 attendees to help meet the increased needs during this peak time of remote work. With this extension of Teams as a one-to-many platform, you'll be able to easily host virtual events and webinars of all types. This includes town halls, training webinars, media broadcasts, and conferences. Now, based on the type of meeting or event that you want to create, you can either schedule a Teams meeting, a Teams webinar, or a Teams live event. Now, you may be wondering, how do I know which one to schedule? A Teams meeting tends to be collaborative in nature and is great to leverage if you want people to have a shared experience between presenters and attendees. For example, you may want to run a group training session via a Teams meeting. If you want to run a customer webinar, it may be ideal to schedule a Teams webinar as it is a more structured event that requires registrations. On the flip side, live events provides advanced video production capabilities when you need them and a consistent attendee experience for up to 10,000 people. For example, a company town hall with advanced production may be suitable for a live event. Here's a quick feature comparison for Teams meetings, webinars, and live events. To sum it up, I highly recommend running your virtual event using a Teams meeting or webinar if you want more interaction with your audience or if you want to collect registrations. For example, you may want to allow attendees to go off mute or turn on their videos during Q&A. There's no right or wrong answer for which way to go. It really just depends on what level of interaction you want during your session and what kind of controls you want available to you. Now let's jump into a demo to see Teams webinars in action. First, let's get started with setting up the webinar. How do we actually schedule the webinar, manage registrations, and configure our meeting options? As a Teams user, there's no additional expertise needed to set up a webinar. I'm logged into Teams and I'm currently viewing my calendar. To schedule in a webinar, all you need to do is hit the drop down next to New Meeting in the top right corner and select Webinar. Now, where you'll want to pay attention to is this new field where it says Require Registration. By default, it says require registration for everyone. This means that everyone, including those internal and external to your organisation, are required to register to your webinar to attend. You also have the option to require registration for people in your organisation. This means that only people in your organisation are required to register. If you select None, this means that your webinar will not require registrations for people to attend and hence will be a standard Teams meeting. Because I want to collect registration details for everyone who joins this webinar, I'll go ahead and choose Require Registration for Everyone. Now keep in mind, this view here is everything I can see as the organizer. In this scenario, I'm hosting a Microsoft Teams webinar for my customers, which is open to the public. What I can do is fill in the details of this internal invite, and I can also add presenters for this webinar who will receive this internal webinar invite and see all of the details along with it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and invite my co-presenter, Adele. So I'm going to paste in her email address, and everyone else will be an attendee by default. Let's just make sure the date and time is correct now. Perfect. I can then go ahead and add a location if I like and any internal notes for this meeting. Next, let's get to what most of us are excited to see, the custom registration form. So to customize the registration form, click on View Registration Form. This is the page people will see when they open the registration link. Now, first of all, I can upload an image. Let's hit Upload an Image. And what I'm going to do is drag an image that I would like to use as my background image. What I can do now is select the area of the image I would like to use in my registration page. This looks good to me, so I'm going to hit Done. Beautiful. Next, what I'm going to do is fill in the event details exactly how I'd like my registrants to see it. What's really great about the registration form is that I can add information about my speakers as well. Amazing, so I've got the speaker details for myself and my co-presenter Adele. Now let's take a look at the registration form that attendees need to fill in when they sign up. Now every form requires the first and last name and an email for registration. I can add additional fields such as address, state, industry, job title or organisation. Let's say I want to know my attendee's job title, and I can decide whether I want this to be a required field or an optional field. Let's mark this as required. Now something I really love doing is adding a field for a customized question. I have the option of making it an input response, which is a short response such as, are there any questions that you'd like to ask ahead of the session? Or you can also add a multiple choice response. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and ask, what topic are you most interested in learning about? And I'm going to add a few different options here. Now, I love adding customized questions because it helps me learn about people who are going to join my session ahead of time. This way, I can curate the content to make it more relevant to them. By asking my attendees which areas I should focus on prior to the session, this will make the session a lot more valuable to those who attend. Now, because this question is optional, I'm not going to tick required. Beautiful, my registration form is looking really good now. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save at the top left corner. And now you can see a beautiful preview of what the form will look like, and you can go ahead and hit Edit at any time you like to customize the questions again, as well as all of the event details on the left-hand side. You can even click View in Browser at the top right corner over here. This shows a nice preview of what attendees will see. Now, what's really important is for you to copy the registration link and leverage it to promote your webinar. So I'm going to hit copy registration link. And one way that I can promote my webinar is by using LinkedIn. So here I am on LinkedIn, and what I can do is simply start a post. I can then write up a description to promote my webinar. Now you'll want to paste the webinar link you copied on your clipboard a moment ago. All done, let's hit post. Now I have a LinkedIn post that promotes my webinar that anyone can simply click on the link and register. Now, another popular way to promote your webinar is through email. You may want to leverage an existing email template you have or ask for the assistance from marketing or corporate comms, or you can even whip up a simple email of your own. So I just have an example of an email I've created here, and what's important is to make sure that you include your registration link in your email. So what I'm going to do is highlight the Register Now call to action. Right-click on it, edit the hyperlink, and make sure it's the right hyperlink that directs people to my registration page. Brilliant. So what you can do is save this email invite and share it with your broader team to promote to their customers and other people that would like to attend the webinar. And you can also share it to people yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and invite someone to this webinar through email. So I'm going to invite Alex. I'm going to paste in his email. And then let's hit send. All right, so let's look at the registration process from an attendee point of view. So right now I'm logged in as Alex Wilbur and I've signed into my demo environment so we can see what it looks like from an attendee perspective. So in my Outlook inbox, I can see that I've received an email from Lily. What I can do is read over the information about the webinar and I'm really interested, so I'm going to hit register now. Next, I'm going to go ahead and fill in my details to register for this event. And I think I'm most interested in learning about meetings. So let's go ahead and hit register now. All right, so I can see a confirmation there that says see you at the event, and we've sent a confirmation email to my email address. So let's go ahead and check my inbox. All right, so I can see an email from Microsoft Teams that says that I've registered for a Microsoft Teams webinar and that my seat is reserved. Perfect. Now what this email gives me is a link to actually join the event, and it specifies the time that the webinar is at. But what's really handy is that I can actually save the webinar in my calendar so I don't forget when it is. So I'm going to double click on the calendar attachment and I'm simply going to hit add to calendar. Perfect, that's all done now. I even have the option to cancel my registration if I don't want to attend this webinar anymore. Now navigating to my calendar, I can actually see the invite right here, and it's going to give me a reminder when it approaches, and when the time comes, I'm going to hit join event. Okay, before we actually start the webinar, I want to quickly switch back to the organizer view as Lily. So I'm back in my Teams calendar, and something that I really want to show you is how you can set up your meeting options. To access this, double click on the webinar invite. Here we can see all of the details that we set up before, and you'll want to go to the top right corner and double click on meeting options. Now, setting up the meeting options is really important because it really allows you to set up your webinar the way that you like to create a more seamless experience. It also allows you to determine how interactive you want your attendees to be during the session. For example, do you want them to be able to turn on their mics and turn on their videos? Let's take a look at it right now. First of all, you can determine who can bypass the lobby. This means you can decide whether you want people to jump straight into the webinar, so you would select everyone if this was the case, or if you only want specific people to be able to bypass the lobby and go straight into the webinar. If I select only me, this means that both internal and external participants will need to wait in a virtual lobby until I admit them all into the webinar myself when I'm ready. For this specific webinar, I'm going to select people in my organisation and guests, as I feel comfortable with them joining the webinar at their own pace, and I'd like to admit the external participants to join only when I'm ready to do so. You can also determine whether you want to let callers bypass the lobby, so I'll leave this as no. as well as whether you want to announce when callers join or leave. To avoid the noise of announcing when callers join or leave, especially with such a large volume of potential participants, I'm going to leave this as a no. Something that's also important to know is, who do you want to present in your actual webinar? Do you want everyone to be able to share screen and present? Do you want specific people, or do you only want yourself to have the option to share your screen and present the content that you like? In this specific scenario, I'm going to select people in my organization and guests. However, this is going to prevent anyone external from my organization to present, which is what I'm looking for. Now, managed mode is something that's coming soon, and this allows attendees to only see shared content and the videos of people that you spotlight. For now, I'm going to leave this as a no. And something really important to look at is, do you want to allow attendees to turn on their mics and turn on their cameras when they like? My personal preference for large-scale webinars is leaving this as a no, so that attendees' mics and cameras are disabled unless I want to promote them and allow them to turn on their mics and cameras on. And I'll show you a bit later how to do this. This is going to avoid that disruption of a lot of people having their mics on and forgetting to put themselves on mute, as well as saving some bandwidth with having hundreds of people having their cameras on. Next, you can determine if you want the session to be recorded automatically. So when you actually join the webinar, it's going to hit record on its own, and you don't actually have to do that yourself manually. I'm going to hit yes because I definitely want the session to be recorded. And you can also determine if you want to allow the meeting chat. If you click enable, this is going to allow the chat to live on after the meeting exists as well, or you can disable the chat overall. Something that's very popular is only allowing the chat in meeting only. So when the session starts, the chat is available, but when it concludes, no one will be able to send messages through the chat, and there won't be those constant notifications for all of the attendees. So I'm going to leave it as in meeting only. And lastly, you can decide whether you want to allow reactions or not. So this includes raising hand, attendees sending reactions such as thumbs up and heart reacts. Personally, I really love having reactions, and it makes meetings and webinars a lot more interactive and fun. So I'm going to leave that as a yes, and let's hit save. Now, back in the internal webinar invite, what I can do is access the registrations. Let's go ahead and hit download. And here I can see some very useful information. So I can see how many times my registration page has been viewed. And I can also see the participants that have registered to my webinar. So here we can see that Alex Wilbur has registered, his email address, his job title, what he's interested in learning about, which is meetings, his status, which is registered, and you can also see if an attendee has cancelled their registration, and the time and date that they registered to. Now that we know how to set up the webinar, let's look at how we can run the webinar so that we can drive the most engagement with our attendees. Let's look at some presentation options, polling, and how we can interact with our attendees to make sure that they're staying focused and engaged with our session. Alrighty, it's finally go time. So what I'm going to do now is head to my Teams calendar and join the webinar. So what I can do is right click on the webinar and hit join online, or I can click on it and hit join here as well. Now what we can do now is make sure that our audio and video options are set up how we like. So I like to just double check that I've got the customized setup that I like, the speakers connected to my headphones, and my microphone is connected to the right output. Right now I'm using computer audio, but you can also choose to use phone audio, a room audio if you're in your office, or you can choose to not use audio at all. So that's something that attendees may like to use, for example. So I'm going to go with computer audio, and I'm happy with all of my settings here. I can also join with a background filter, and right now I've just got one of a beautiful background of Bondi, so I'm going to keep that as is. And let's hit join now. Okay, so we've kicked off the webinar. I'm the first one to join, and we can see that it's already kicked off the recording because of the meeting options that we set to start the recording as soon as the webinar goes live. So it's going to give that pop-up for attendees as well and just let them know that the session is being recorded. And when they do join, also best practice to let attendees know that they're being recorded as well. So I'm going to hit dismiss. And something that's really good to keep in mind is that along with your recording, you can also start a transcription. So if you click on these three dots for more actions at the top over here, below where it says recording, you can hit start transcription. Again, it says that recording and transcription has started, and it's just going to let everyone in the meeting know that they're being recorded and transcribed. So for the sake of this recording, I'm just going to hit stop recording. So now we can see that there's a few people waiting in the lobby. So what we can do is hit view lobby. And what this is going to do is open up the participants pane, and I can have the option to admit all, or I can select specific people that I'd like to admit. So let's go ahead and admit to all. Okay, so here we can see we've got a few other people who have joined. So we've got Adele, who is our co-presenter, and we've also got Alex, who's one of our attendees. So one of my fellow colleagues, Sunny, is actually going to be role-playing as Alex, and we're going to show you a few things that you can do, such as how do you promote an attendee to become a speaker? So how do they go off mute and how do they turn on video? Currently, the attendees can only join without their mics on and without using videos unless you allow them to do so an example is if Alex raises his hand and wants to ask a question, myself or another co-presenter is able to actually promote them and allow them to go off mute and turn their cameras on. So as we can see, Alex has his hand up, and what we can actually do is right click on his name, and what I can click is allow mic. So we can see that the icon has changed from the cross through to the unmute button. And what we can also do is click on the three dots or right click and click allow camera. So what this also allows Alex to do is switch his camera on if he likes as well. So Alex, do you have a question that you'd like to share?
Hi Lily, will this session be recorded?
Yes, this session is being recorded, and you'll also receive a copy of the slide deck afterwards as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. And something that's a really handy tip is that you can also spotlight people who are currently speaking. So for example, let's say that Alex is asking a question, or we have someone who is currently presenting. What we can do is right click on them and spotlight them. So Alex, if you could quickly turn your video on again. So while Alex is speaking and he's asking the question, what I can do is right click on Alex's video, and I can actually click on spotlight. And what this is going to do is it's going to highlight the video for everyone in the meeting. So even if we have multiple people with their video streams on, including myself, it's going to make sure that Alex's video is the center of attention. And another handy tip is that you can actually turn on live captions. What I encourage you to do is let your participants know the option to turn on live captions, because it is an individual view. So what you can do is click on these three dots, click on turn on live captions. And as we can see, it's outlining what I'm saying at the bottom of the screen over here. And what's really useful is that there's actually speaker attribution as well. So the live captions actually showcases not only what's being said, but also who is saying what. So Alex, are you able to do me a favor and quickly go off mute and say a few sentences so we can see this in action?
Hi everyone, my name is Alex and I'm an attendee for today's webinar.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. I'm going to quickly switch off live captions. After attendees have asked their questions and you've promoted them, you have the option to switch this back off, so they don't have the option to go on video or turn on their mics again. So you just have to right click on their name and click on disable mic and disable camera. Another handy way you can promote an attendee or adjust audio and video controls is by clicking on the participants pane. So at the top bar, hit show participants. And what this does is it shows you who the presenters are in the meeting and who the attendees are. Now, what I can do is hit on the three dots next to Alex's name, and here I have the option to allow mic and allow camera. So likewise, if this was already allowed, I would be able to disable them here as well. Here I can also pin him, and as we discussed before, we can also spotlight him. So here we have the controls to do it at the participants pane as well, so it will highlight the video for everyone in this meeting. And we also have the option to make him a presenter. This way they would be able to present and share content, as well as take control when I'm sharing my screen too. Lastly, you also have the option to remove them from the meeting overall. So let's say I have an external guest speaker in this webinar and they were only presenting for a portion of it, and after that they weren't required anymore. What I can do is hit remove from meeting. What's also quite interesting is for my presenters, I can hit the three dots next to their name and I can also make them an attendee. There's lots of really great options in the participants pane that will allow you to take full control of who is able to speak, who is able to use their video, as well as who can share content and be a presenter or attendee. One of my favorite ways to easily drive engagement during a webinar is by sending out a real-time poll. An easy way to do this is by clicking on the three dots at the top bar here and hit More Actions. Then you'll want to navigate to Add an App. Here you'll see a really great selection of apps that you can leverage right within your meeting, and you can even search for a specific app that you're after in the search bar too. Now, to send out a real-time poll, I'm going to use Microsoft Forms. So I'm just going to click on Forms here. Now, Forms is a native Microsoft app that allows you to create polls before or during your meeting. Here, I'll show you an example of how you can create a poll during your meeting, and in a moment, I'll show you how you can set it up beforehand if you like as well. So let's go ahead and hit Save. So as you can see, it's created a tab at the top of my meeting called Polls. Now here on the right-hand side is where I can create and manage my polls. Scrolling down, you can see the option to create a new poll, and it also provides me some really great poll suggestions that I can leverage and quickly select and edit. For example, we can see the recommended one that asks, how energized are you feeling today? And it gives attendees the option to rate how they're feeling from 1 to 5. What I'm going to go ahead and do is hit create new poll. Here, you can choose a way to engage with your audience. Firstly, if you select multiple choice poll, this allows you to create a poll from scratch and write a question with different options that attendees can select. If you click on multiple choice quiz, this is very similar to a poll. However, you would have to select which option is correct. So you would be quizzing attendees on their knowledge on a specific topic. It's a really great way to end your session and drive some engagement and competition between your attendees. Now, I want to ask my attendees how well they know Microsoft Teams. In the poll suggestions, I can already see a question that says, how well do you know this topic? So I can select this and customize it. Now, as we can see, it's made my job super easy. It's pre-filled the question and some suggested responses for me. So let me go ahead and just customize the question to ask, how well do you know Microsoft Teams? And I'm very happy with the options that attendees can select, so they can say, I'm an expert, I know a little, or I don't know much. Now at the bottom here, we also have a few options. We can select if we want to share results automatically after voting, which I want to do, so I'll leave that ticked. We also have the option to make the poll anonymous if we like. What's also cool is we have the option to allow others to co-author the poll. So what this does is it allows other presenters that you have in the meeting to actually edit the poll as well. Let's go ahead and hit save. Now, as we can see here, the poll is listed as draft. Until we hit launch, it's not going to go live to attendees yet. What this means is we can pre-prepare our polls before or during a meeting, and then we can launch it at the specific time that we want. I can even go ahead and click the arrow next to launch and edit the poll or delete it if I don't need it anymore. So let's go ahead and launch it. Now, once I've hit launch, it's changed the status from draft to live. So what this means is the poll has now popped up to all of my attendees and they're able to vote on their response and let me know how well do they know Microsoft Teams. What I can do is hit view results, and what this allows me to do is see the responses in real time. Here we can see that somebody has voted I am an expert, while another attendee has voted I know a little. Navigating to the chat window, we can see the live poll that attendees can see, and we can also see their responses here as well. If I hit the polls tab once again, what I can do is close the poll so attendees can no longer vote. I can export the results so I can see a full list of the poll results and who voted for what, or I can delete the poll as well. Now you can see how easy it was to create a poll and how it really breaks up the session for attendees as they are able to contribute their ideas and opinions and vote on a specific topic. If you no longer need an app such as the poll or another app that you've brought into the meeting, what you can do is click on the 3 dots and hit remove. Now I'm going to quickly show you how you could have added this poll before the meeting too. If you want to prepare ahead of the meeting for any polls that you know you want to send out, what you can do is hit the plus icon in the meeting chat, search for the specific app that you're after. So in this case, we want Forms. Hit save. And here we can see and manage all of our polls. So here's the previous one that we've sent out. We can create any new polls that we want to send out later in the meeting. And what this is going to do is it's going to save it as a draft. And during the meeting itself, you can push it out to go live. Simple as that. As a presenter, you have so many rich presentation options that you can leverage to not only make your life easier as a presenter, but you can really make attendees feel a lot more engaged with the different presentation layouts that you choose to use. Now, to access the different presentation options, what you'll want to do is click on Share Content. So this is located right next to the Leave button at the top right corner of your screen. Now here, you can see a variety of ways that I can share my content. First, you have different presenter modes, which I'll go through in a moment. You also have the option to share specific screens. So for example, I can share a specific desktop or monitor that I have open. This is really useful if I want to show everything that I have on my screen. Or you can have the option to share a specific window. So whether it's just a web browser that you want to share or a specific Word document, it's only going to capture what's in that specific window and nothing else. I also have the option to share a Microsoft whiteboard. So this is great if I want to collaborate with people in my meeting. Let's say I want to hold a brainstorming session. Really great way to gain some interaction. And last but not least, PowerPoint Live is one of my favorite things to leverage as a presenter when you want to share a slide deck. What this allows you to do is you can see your speaker notes, all of your slides and the upcoming slides, and you can still interact with your audience while you present. Now what Teams does is it picks up on all of the recent PowerPoints that you've been working on and it shows it here in the preview. Or if it's not there, you can browse from your OneDrive or upload from your computer too. Something to note when you share content is if you want to include computer sound. If you're sharing content that includes audio, make sure you hit Include Computer Sound, and the sound that plays through your computer or your device is going to play for all of your audience members as well. Now, I want to share a PowerPoint deck that I've prepared for this webinar. So what I'm going to do is hit the one that I've prepared. And as you can see, it's brought up this amazing view, which is PowerPoint Live. And this is the view that I can see as the presenter that really helps me optimize the way that I present. Now, drawing your attention to the right-hand side, you can see my speaker notes here. This really allows me to focus on looking at my camera and talking to the audience instead of having my notes on another desktop monitor, for example, and looking away. Really great way to maintain that eye contact. I have the option to make the text larger if it's too small for me, or I can make it smaller too. Now, something that I absolutely love is being able to see what slides are coming up next. Something that I really love is how easy it is to navigate between slides. I can simply navigate forward to my next slide and see my speaker notes next to it. Or let's say I want to skip to slide 4 because somebody's asked me a specific question that's on that slide. So I can go ahead and click on that slide and it will skip right there. I also have a grid view of the slides as well. So I can click on grid view, which is next to the arrows. And what this showcases is all of my slides in the view of a grid. I've only got 4 slides now, but you can imagine this can be really handy if you have a large slide deck and you can easily scroll down to the specific slide you're looking for and simply click on it. Something that's really cool that's going to be rolling out later is the option to use a laser pointer or different pens to annotate on your slides. So if we use the laser pointer, for example, we can select the color that we want. And what we can do is point at the screen like we usually would do with a laser pointer and draw attention to specific areas that we'd like on the slide. We can even go ahead and circle specific things. And what it's going to do is it's going to appear for a second and then fade away. A pen, on the other hand, is similar, but it's going to leave the ink on the slide. So let's say I wanted to underline this section over here, elevated performance and fit, and I want to circle long range control. That's going to draw specific attention to things on the slide. I can annotate a diagram, for example, on the right-hand side if I wanted to, and I can even go with the highlighter tool and highlight specific things that I like. Using the eraser tool, I can go ahead and erase all the ink on the slide to make sure it's nice and clean if I like. Something I want to emphasize is what you see on the screen is just the presenter view. From an attendee perspective, all they would be seeing is what's in this red box over here. All of the other features that you see here, such as the speaker notes and all of the upcoming slides, is only accessible through your view as a presenter. So don't stress about attendees seeing your speaker notes. Something that I absolutely love about PowerPoint Live is that everything is within the Teams interface. Often, if we're just using one monitor and we're presenting our slides in full screen, for example, you may not be able to access the Teams chat and see what different reactions people are providing. By leveraging PowerPoint Live, I'm able to still access the chat on the right-hand side. I can view the participants pane, and I can still interact with my attendees just the way that I would in a Teams meeting because everything is right here in front of me. Here we can see some reactions flow through from the audience. It's a really great way to just stay engaged with your audience and still interact within the Teams meeting itself. So something I do want to note with PowerPoint Live is that attendees have the option to navigate through the slides at their own pace. This is great, for example, if somebody missed content on a previous slide that you presented and they want to go back and read on the content they missed. However, as a presenter, you have the option to prevent participants from moving through the presentation on their own by clicking on this eye icon at the top, which is right next to the Stop Presenting button. So if you click this, it's going to show a strike through in the eye icon. And what this means is when you navigate through the slide, all of the participants will be on this slide as well, and they will view exactly what you're viewing as well. Now, something I hinted to before were different presenter modes. You can actually access different presenter modes during PowerPoint Live by looking at the top bar over here where it says presenter mode. So right now you can see that content only is selected, so only the content from my slide is visible to the audience. What I can also do is click standout mode, and what this is going to do is it's going to place me inside my slide. It sounds funny, but let's give it a go. Alright, so what Teams has done is it's placed me on the bottom right side of my slide deck. So when we navigate through the slides, the audience can really see me alongside the slide deck as well. I personally love using Standout so much because it really creates a greater level of connection with yourself and the audience. When the Standout Presenter mode rolls out to you, I highly recommend you give this a try. It's a lot of fun, and you'll see that the audience in your webinar will be a lot more engaged as well. Now let's quickly switch back to content only. And something I want to showcase is how it's so easy to switch between different presenters using PowerPoint Live. How many times have you been involved in a meeting or presentation and you've seen only one person control the slide deck and anyone else who presents during the session has to ask them, hey, can you flick to the next slide, please? I've been guilty of doing this myself, and I know it's not the most efficient way to control the slides. Now, using PowerPoint Live, the presenters on the call can actually request control, and they can then navigate through the slides at their own pace. So we've got Adele on call, and she's the other presenter that we have. So I'm going to ask Adele, can you please take control of the slides so we can see what it looks like? Alrighty, so we can see a pop-up that says another user took control and someone else is now in control of the presentation, and we have the option to take back control or dismiss. Something to note that only the people who have the role as a presenter has the option to take control. So if we go to our participants panel, we can see that myself and Adele are listed as presenters and Alex is an attendee. So Alex doesn't have the option to take control, but anyone who's listed as a presenter does. This is reassuring to know because during my webinar, I know that only the presenters that I have specified can take control and navigate through the slide deck. So now that Adele has taken control, we can see her navigating through the slide deck as she likes and as she's presenting specific content. What we're seeing now is the attendee view of the PowerPoint Live. So from the attendee perspective, we can just see the slide deck. We can't see any of the speaker notes. And hovering over this icon over here, it does say that the presenter has turned off participant navigation. So we don't have the option to navigate through the slides at our own pace. So that's something that we set up before. I don't have hyperlinks embedded in this specific slide deck, but what's really great to know is that if you have a slide deck with hyperlinks, attendees can actually click on the hyperlinks and interact with them within the slide. Attendees have the option to view slides in high contrast, which may make it easier to read. And they can also translate the slides to another language. Let's give this a go. How cool is that? I'm just going to bring it back to the original, which is English. And as another presenter in this meeting, I always have the option to take back control. Let's say that Adele is done with presenting her section and I want to go back to take control of the slides. So I'm just going to hit take control. As you can see, I'm back in the view with the presenter. I have my speaker notes and I have access to all of the slides. And that's PowerPoint Live. I hope you can tell how much I love it and how much it really changes the game with presenting your PowerPoints. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting. All right, so before we wrap up what we can do during a webinar, let's flip to the attendee perspective. So I'm logged in as Alex in Teams and I can see the invite to the webinar in my Teams calendar because I added it to my calendar earlier. And now I can simply click Join Event. And this just brings up a pop-up and asks me how I want to join this Teams meeting, whether I want to continue on the browser or if I want to open in my Teams app, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and click this and hit Open. I can select the way I want to hear my audio, so let's just hit Computer Audio, and I'm going to join on mute, and I'm going to hit Join Now. So right now it just says we've let people in the meeting know that you're waiting, so essentially we're waiting in the lobby, and now we've been admitted. And as an attendee, we can see quite a few pop-ups. So it's mentioned here that I'm an attendee and I won't be able to share my content or facilitate. The option to turn on video, go off mute, as well as share content is all grayed out because I'm an attendee and not a presenter. I still have access to the chat. So what I can do is engage with other participants in the chat over here. I have the option to send reactions, so I can show support to the presenters by sending a thumbs up, for example, or an applause. And I have the option to raise my hand if I want to ask a specific question, and the presenters can then enable my audio and video if they choose to do so. If I click on the dots here, I have a few options as well. So I can go on full screen mode. It's going to make the content presented even larger. So everything is full screen. Or I also have the option to use focus mode. And this is going to purely focus on the shared content. So I don't see other people's video streams or other people's icons. I purely just focus on the slides. These are some really great ways to customize the layout as an attendee to view the webinar how you like. Depending on how many people are in the meeting as well, I can customize the way that things are presented. So currently I'm on gallery view. I can select large gallery view if there are a lot of video streams that are currently open, such as up to 49, or I can even select together mode. Let me show a quick video of my team using together mode so you can get a sense of what it looks like. As you can see, this brings us all to a shared space. We're in a conference room view and it's really nice having us all together in this shared space and we're not separated by the borders of our video streams. And a new update that we have in Teams is different together mode scenes. So if you just navigate to the bottom left corner of your screen, you can click on change scene. And here we can see a whole range of different scenes that we can select based on the scenario you're in. For large large-scale webinars and events, for example, it might be good to have a conference room that supports up to 50 videos. So let's give this one a try. As more people join the actual meeting, the Together Mode scene will actually zoom out and capture everyone in this scene together.
I think my favorite tip about Together Mode is the ability just to see everyone's faces and be able to quickly read their body language and their reactions when I'm delivering content. Not only when it's in a scenario like this, but when you're potentially showing slides as well, and you can actually see the everyone's response and know whether you're landing your message or not.
Keep in mind though, it really does depend on the size of your meeting or webinar, and that's what the experience looks like as an attendee. So I'm going to go ahead and hit leave, and I'm going to end this webinar. Okay, now that the webinar is over, what we can do as a presenter or organizer doesn't end there. Post the webinar, we can actually access the attendee report as well as view the recording and access other features as well. Let's have a look into this. All done and dusted. So now that the webinar is finally over, as the organizer, I can access some post-webinar resources. So let's double click on the webinar invite. And here you can see some really great post-webinar resources. We have access to the recordings, the transcript, and the latest version of the registration list that we can download to Excel. Let's go ahead and click on the recording, and where it takes you is the recording and transcripts tab at the top over here. Here we can see the transcript from the session, and we can actually download it and export it as well. And on the right hand side we can access the recording, so let's hit play. Here I can view my recording, and I can also share it to others as well as copy the link, or I can even download the recording and upload it somewhere if I like as well. You'll also notice a tab at the top that says attendance. Let's have a listen to a short clip where Troy Batterberry, the Vice President for Microsoft Teams, goes over the attendee dashboard.
Well, if you are an event host, you can see who attended and how long they joined. We allow you to also export that raw data so that you can build your own custom reports. We'll also be providing richer reports within Teams over time. We want to make Teams be the best place to host your meetings of all sizes. The interaction with your customers doesn't stop when the webinar ends. You'll also be able to export that attendee information into Dynamics 365 for nurturing and future follow-up.
So you may be wondering, when can I have access to these amazing webinar capabilities? Here's a snapshot of what is generally available and what is rolling out soon. Many of the features that I showcased today, such as adding polls to meetings, using PowerPoint Live, and having 1,000-person interactive webinars are available now. And on the right-hand side, you can see some additional features that are rolling out soon. This includes presenter layouts, as well as attendee reporting. Keep in mind, the webinar features are always changing and evolving, so please check out the Microsoft 365 roadmap at aka.ms/M365 roadmap for expected release dates and what's coming. If you want to learn more about webinars, please check out these links here that I'm going to leave behind for you. I highly recommend checking out the best practices for webinars and large meetings at aka.ms/webinar best practices. This gives a really great overview of what you should consider before organizing your large-scale virtual event and has some really handy tips there. Feel free to also join our LinkedIn community at aka.ms/business adoption community to ask your questions and engage with other modern work CSMs and your peers. So that brings us towards the end of our webinar. I really enjoyed delivering this session for you. Teams meetings and webinars is one of my favorite topics, so if you enjoyed the session as well, please let me know, as it would really make my day. To provide your valuable feedback, please scan the QR code on the right-hand side or visit aka.ms/host webinars form. Feel free to stick around and type your questions in the Q&A section on the right-hand side of your screen as well, and either myself or one of my colleagues will reply as soon as possible. I'll be picking out some top questions to answer live during the next 15 minutes. Thank you again for joining this session, and I really appreciate the time that you've spent learning more about webinars and Teams. Thank you.